And we're live. Yay, live. All right, let's get a show going. What do you think?
Woohoo!
It's been too long, hasn't it? That means intro music. Welcome to the Iron Sysadmin podcast, your source for IT news, commentary, and a healthy dose of paranoia. Welcome back after something of a long absence. We got at least two of the hosts together for another episode of Iron Sysadmin. So say good evening to my co-host, Charles.
Hello.
You know, I sat down to re-record that intro at some point during the last 3 weeks, and I just lost all motivation halfway through, and I didn't get it done. It just wasn't working like I wanted it to. I couldn't get the volume just right. I couldn't get the length just right. I just got frustrated and stopped.
I mean, it's like 10 words.
No, you have no idea how complicated it is to get it the right length, get the words out in the right spot, get the volume to drop in the right place. It's a lot of work. Don't believe me if you don't want to. I'm telling you, it's a lot of work.
Sounds very hard.
It is. It's very hard. Just maximize the window. I didn't want to maximize. I hate when that happens. These computers are difficult, guys. Okay, it's better. Just organizing things here so I can actually do a show. All right. So, yeah, like I said, it's been a little while. We're going to try to get a show out tonight. The next show we should be recording is the week after Thanksgiving, and I'm going to be in Las Vegas at reInvent. So I don't know that we're going to have a show that week because, well, I just don't know if we could arrange time zones for me to get on a call with you guys. I don't know. All right, go ahead. I talked over you.
That feels like that's going to be an issue.
Yeah, I think that'll be a problem. Unless I stay up, if I stayed up late? No, if you stayed up late. Sorry, time zones confuse me.
I would have to stay up late, and you would have to have appropriate equipment with you in Vegas.
Yeah, well, I mean, we could just do a rough show just to get something out. I don't know. I don't think it's going to work, though. Anyway, let's get into the news, huh? Trying to figure out where that alert just came from. Was that you or me?
Shouldn't be me.
What in the heck was that? All right. I'll edit that out later. So, following up from a story we did cover already, there was a pre-release announcement for Red Hat Satellite 6.4 that we had some information, and now it's released. Actually, as of October 16th, it's released. So we're a little bit late on this, but I still think it's a relatively big deal for anybody that's running a Red Hat shop. 6.4 is bringing some pretty cool features, more Ansible support, Ansible embedded for remote execution specifically, and Ansible Foreman integration, which I haven't looked into exactly what that means yet. But hopefully I'll find out as soon as we get to 6.4. I started the upgrade procedure. We're on 6.2, so I got to get to 6.3 and then 6.4. Puppet 5 support, a new UI, it looks like. Updated Red Hat repositories page. I'll actually be happy to see that. The repositories page is kind of a mess. So anyway, if you guys can't tell, I am a satellite user and use it a lot. Charles is probably inside thinking about when it works, right?
I love the idea of satellite and I love it when it works, but I don't know, maybe it's just the way we have it implemented, but we've certainly had challenges with stability.
Yeah, so the issue with satellite, and at least with our deployment of satellite, is there's a lot of moving pieces, and we pretty much have me to manage the whole thing. And I've got a bunch of other things to manage too. So generally, it's the whole reason we're at satellite 6.2 instead of 6.3. I've been too busy to get it updated to 6.3. Not that I was avoiding 6.3, just haven't had time. Now 6.4's dropped, so I figured it's a good time to get moving on that. But there's a lot of pieces. There's a lot of integration. There's a few pieces that I have configured in ways that benefit us that aren't necessarily baked into the way Satellite is designed to be run. So sometimes that causes issues, and I can't necessarily blame Satellite 100%. I don't want to be down on Satellite. It's a great tool. It's just really complex.
Yeah, the part of the release that really does interest me is the tighter integration with Ansible, which we kind of expected. But Puppet is still supported, but Ansible seems to be the coming thing. And apparently, on paper, in some ways, Ansible is. I mean, they kind of do the same thing in different ways, but in some respects, I think Ansible is maybe less complex, at least fewer moving parts.
Yeah, I've been happy enough with Puppet, and I know there's not exactly a movement to eradicate Puppet and replace it with Ansible from anybody's viewpoint. I know a lot of people use them together. I am anxious to see what Ansible can do and what it can do better than Puppet, because Puppet is aging. There are some things that are difficult to do with Puppet. Ansible seems a lot cleaner, and I'm looking forward to working a little more with Ansible. So,
and I mean, realistically, now that Ansible is part of Satellite, I mean, they're not going to maintain two different provisioning methods indefinitely. I wouldn't think. I can't see them taking on that kind of complexity for anything more in a transitional period. So
yeah, I think it'll depend on how quickly Ansible can be adopted for the things that we currently use Puppet for. Hey, look, Jason has just joined.
Hey, it's me.
Good. Are you busy fiddling with your microphone to try to get it just right, or should we just continue and you'll catch up?
Are we live already?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we're live already.
Wow.
Good for you, right? Joining in the last second. We're just talking about Satellite and Ansible. So if you had anything to throw in, go right ahead.
Yay Ansible, yay Satellite, boo Red Hat and IBM. Okay,
that's the next thing to talk about. Listen, you're getting ahead of the game.
All right.
Was that a transition?
Some more. Yes, I transitioned us.
Transition. So yeah, show notes are where you'd expect them to be. Do you need me to send you a link again?
Nope, I'm already there.
Good. All right. Jason is hot in from who knows where. Mr. On the go.
Well, I try.
So in other Red Hat news, if anybody hasn't heard about this, you're living under a rock. Apparently, IBM is going to acquire Red Hat for $34 billion.
I hope it's a nice rock.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it might be a really shiny rock for $34 billion. This dropped the week we were supposed to record last, and we just didn't get together to record a show, and it's too big news to not cover on this show. So, yeah, if you haven't heard, I mean, check the show notes. There's an article. I linked the CNN article that dropped, let's see, October 29th, which I think is the day this was announced. There may be follow-up articles since then, but I haven't dug too deeply for them. But it is what it is. I mean, I've been trying to speculate as to why this is happening. I'm just not a business analyst, so
so something that I haven't been able to look at yet. Who owns SUSE? So I was told that IBM bought SUSE a long time ago, which could be wrong.
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's wrong too.
I don't think they own it.
Micro Focus owned it. And now it's owned by EQT. Okay, maybe that was a long time ago. Anyway. Okay, so ignore me. This is what happens when I don't have a chance to look things up before I say them.
Well, no. So SUSE was owned by
Novell.
And then when Novell went, well, wherever Novell went, SUSE got bought by somebody. We looked this up on a previous show.
Did we?
I don't know that IBM was ever in that mix.
Yeah, well so
Novell had a deal over some of the Unix patents or some such. I understood all this during the craziness.
the SCO Unix craziness?
Yeah. That was a long time ago.
That has been a while.
So
that was like 10 years ago. 15 years ago, wasn't it?
Still some open litigation.
So anyway,
So yeah, so somebody had passed that information on to me at the at B-Sides this past weekend, and I hadn't had a chance to verify it. So now I
Oh,
verified that they're wrong,
that SUSE
and I'll
was owned
never
by
trust them
IBM.
again.
Yeah, I don't know that was ever a thing. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think it was.
I don't know.
I mean, I assume IBM's doing this because they want to. You see, cloud services the next big thing, and instead of building their own capacity, they'll just buy Red Hats.
Yeah. So what I kind of hope comes out of this is something like an OpenStack fueled IBM cloud. I think that would be a cool outcome. I don't know if that's the plan, but the word cloud is all over every article I've read.
Yeah, they're leveraging it as a cloud move.
Yes, that could just be media being media. Cloud is kind of a buzzword still. So I don't know.
I, for one, am looking forward to being able to run Red Hat Linux on my AS400 again. So
yes, yeah, right. So yeah, I think I know a person or two that works at Red Hat, and they don't seem worried. I know some folks that work at IBM, and they say that IBM isn't what you think it is.
right.
Like the blue suits and the ties and whatever. There may be parts of IBM that are like that, but there are certainly parts of IBM that are not. And a lot of people were concerned that IBM was going to start to try to press their business culture on Red Hat, and that might ruin the vibe. I don't know that that's a big concern for anybody involved. But again, I'm sort of removed from both halves of that equation. I'm just a Red Hat customer, and I really don't want to see it fail. So,
yeah, at least two of the folks that told me things are okay that work for IBM are both work for X-Force Red.
mm-hmm.
The third person, who I'm looking up right now, apparently works for IBM directly. So,
Okay.
And he also says it's not that bad, but he also wears a suit to work every day. So I don't know if we can trust him.
Well, is it by choice?
Whether he wears the suit?
Yeah,
I don't
some
know.
people just like suits.
He runs that weird podcast and likes llamas. So, I'm not sure that makes him trustworthy.
He works for IBM?
Yes.
I had no idea.
Yep. He is the director for cybersecurity management at IBM.
That's cool. I didn't know that. I knew he was some director for the cybers. I didn't know where at. I never tried to find out either. I just let him. Let him like his faux anonymity.
Director of the cybers, is that like traffic cop? Like
yeah,
bad traffic over there.
Yeah, he's got like the hat and the badge on it, and he has like those things they wave airplanes in with, except they're green because it's cyber.
Except they're green because it's cyber. Not blue because it's IBM.
Oh yeah, right. It's IBM cyber. It's got to be kind of maybe it's like a turquoise.
Turquoise cyber. Oh boy.
Well, I guess there's just this question of to what extent is IBM going to keep Red Hat owned but separate and kind of still doing its own thing. Just
I mean the opinions that I've heard from folks who are closer to this than I am are that IBM has claimed that Red Hat is going to keep its autonomy. So, I don't know. I guess only time's going to tell. It sounds like this is going to be a very long process before it's official. Anyway, they're saying like, what, second or third quarter of 2019? This is supposed to be finalized.
Yeah, a lot of these normally take many months.
Second half of 2019.
Companies like this, yeah.
Deals expected to close second half of 2019.
With two massive companies like this, I can see it taking a very, very long time. So
yeah, I mean, and it's like everybody and their brother has heard about this. I was at my kid's soccer game. She's a 4-year-old, right, playing soccer, and another one of the parents. I had this Red Hat windbreaker that I had gotten for being a reference at some point. And I had that on at the soccer game, and he's like, "Do you work for Red Hat?" I'm like, "No, I just have the windbreaker because I'm a customer." He's like, "Oh yeah, did you hear the news?" I'm like, "Had a freaking kids soccer tournament."
Yeah, I was hoping for something more along the lines of like one of the kids scored a goal and ran over and said, "It would have been a great goal, but Red Hat and IBM got together, and now we don't know what's going on. I'm so conflicted."
It's kind of a stretch.
Yeah, but it would have been a good story.
Yeah, no. So, like I said, it is what it is. We'll see where it goes. I'm hoping for the best. I'm generally an optimistic person. Sometimes that shoots me in the foot. I don't know.
Hoping for the best, expecting the worst.
No, I usually hope for the best and expect something not so horrible. That's what optimism is.
Oh, all right. I don't understand these newfangled terms.
All right,
so hippie terminology.
Yeah, optimism, the new topic for you. So you should like this article, Jason. Have you found the show notes yet?
Yeah, no, I'm in the articles. Don't worry.
Can you see the articles? Good. So the Verge reports that
Google's playing catch up. Got it.
Google, they've apparently got a hold of a contract. I assume a contract that was supposed to be between Google and a vendor who makes, hardware manufacturer who makes Android devices. And they're basically trying to force vendors into 2 years of mandatory security updates for Android devices, which I think can only help the Android ecosystem, because this is like the primary problem with Android devices is that a manufacturer churns out an Android device and then just sort of forgets about it within 6 months. Flagship phone comes out, people pay $600-700 for it. 6 months later, the manufacturer's moved on to flagship phone plus one, and all of a sudden you're not getting Android updates anymore. That may be slightly exaggerated, but it's a real problem.
Right.
The only thing I'd like to see more is if this was longer than 2 years, because I'm really getting tired of the every 2 years you need a new phone. At the cost of smartphones, I think we should be getting more than 2 years out of them. And cutting off security updates after 2 years seems too short to me. And that doesn't mean that these manufacturers are going to cut off security updates after 2 years. It means they're no longer required to push out software updates.
For Google phones, it means they're going to cut it off at 2 years. Come on now.
Yes, I know. Exactly. That's remember what I told you about optimism. But you're right. Being realistic, it means that, Samsung or whoever is going to, at the 2 year mark, our contract is now satisfied. Move on to the S11 or whatever the new shiny is, and don't worry about the S10 anymore, or whatever future Android Samsung device we're dealing with. So yeah, it's hopeful and it's depressing all at the same time if you think about it. So hopefully it helps.
Just because we're talking about this, I looked up the average lifespan of a mobile phone, and this wonderfully useful article from 2015 came up and said it's 4.7 years, which is a lie. So now I'm looking.
Well, I lie. I know a couple of people, some present company included, that have kept their phones longer than 2 years.
that's not average, though. Come on.
No, it's not.
I think so, and this shows up this year as well, because this was a Consumer Electronics Association article or something that had pointed this out, and doesn't look like they've done anyone soon. Most of the people that I know don't have phones longer than 2 years. And now with the way the payment plans work, it's, people are flipping phones every year. So yeah. I think getting at least 2 years out of an Android. Look, at this point, when you buy your Android phone, you get 1, maybe 2 updates, and then nothing. So 2 years is that's forever compared to what you get today.
Yeah, I mean, what really gets me is not just the security updates. The security updates are important, but the Android OS updates themselves, not just the security updates, but the releases. Right. I've had lots of devices that are still perfectly functional, but they're on Android 5 or 6, and 9 is current. Come on, folks. Like, this is kind of ridiculous. In fact, the tablet I have sitting right over here that I use as the soundboard for this podcast, I bought it. It's like a Dell Venue or something. Dell has since gotten out of the Android game, which is probably for the best. But I bought it. I don't think it's received an update since I bought it. It's 3 or 4 years old.
Yeah, so for all you hackers out there, if you want to break into the podcast during live,
just get into the soundboard.
You can just get the soundboard, and then you can do all sorts of stuff like screw up his voice. And
yeah, you could like
it'll be fun.
Play. No, it's not that kind of soundboard. It's
Where's the kaboom?
It's that kind of soundboard.
Oh, dude, patch that. That's like the most important thing in the world.
That is. I mean, you need that working, right? And I mean, the creepy organ. Gotta have the creepy organ. But anyway, so yeah, I just have this little Android app that does soundboard, whatever. It's not like the mixer. That is not an Android device or a Dell Venue. Which is what you'd need to change people's voices and stuff, man. Get with the times. Get with the soundy stuff. Guess that's my job. You just talk.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can look to the bright new Android future and into the iPhone passcode bypass reported by the Hacker News.
I know what you're talking about.
Do you have 12.1 yet? You're probably on like
12.
12.6 beta or something, aren't you?
I don't know what beta I'm on. Hang on, let me look.
Nate, didn't you just buy an iPhone like 2 days ago?
I did just order an iPhone, and I'm waiting for
12.1.1 beta 2.
Okay, I'm waiting for you to fall out of your chair because I said that, but you didn't.
Like
That's okay. I switched to WordPress, so
I know. So we both have dirty secrets this week.
Yes. We won't talk about it.
Right. Well, I mean, maybe we will, because that's kind of the topic tonight. Stay tuned, folks. So, yeah, the Hacker News reports a passcode bypass in 12.1, which apparently has only just dropped, 12.1. Except unless you're Jason, who runs betas on everything, including the devices that he depends on for day-to-day life, like his phone.
Actually, the phone betas I've never really had a major issue with. And I only had major problems with the latest Mac OS beta until beta 6-ish. As long as I wasn't trying to use the hard drive, I was okay.
Oh, well, I mean, it's a good thing that's not important.
Right. That's what I figured. Just
operate in memory. You're fine.
I don't understand. Is this a problem? Is this a thing?
So, at any rate, Hacker News reports a Spanish security researcher by the name of Jose Rodriguez has found this interesting passcode bypass so it has to do with FaceTime, what they call it, group FaceTime? Yeah, group FaceTime. It's like you initiate a call to a locked iPhone, you answer it with FaceTime, and then through that you can get through the contacts, I think, on the phone and bypass the password, if I'm reading this correctly.
Yeah, so you're doing the a 3D touch on the contacts to get additional information on them. So look, they're right. There is a security bypass here. But it's not like they've opened your phone and they have access to your entire phone now. They have access basically to your contacts.
Yeah, I was looking for and then you have access to the OS, but it doesn't seem to go that far. It's more like I have access to something I wasn't supposed to have access to, but I don't have access to the whole phone. Does that mean it couldn't lead to that? I don't know.
Right. You also have to have physical access to the phone.
Yeah, well,
all the normal caveats apply.
When you're talking about password bypass, that kind of implies physical access when you're talking about a mobile device. Because it's not like I'm SSHing to your phone. I mean, maybe I could, but... So, yeah. If I know Apple, they'll fix this quickly. And everybody will be happy again. Happy in Apple.
It may actually be fixed in the new beta already.
Oh, good. We'll try it on your phone. See if it's broken. Hold on, I'll call you. I have to do it from my iPhone. Sorry.
Yeah, but it's got to be a FaceTime call. This isn't worth it.
Let me get my wife to call you on FaceTime.
Yeah, I don't even know if I have all the bits and pieces that you need for this.
Well,
plus I turn everything off, so Siri's off and all that stuff. So
it says it doesn't require Siri, man. Delta doesn't need Siri.
Okay.
Although
Well,
I'm sure there's other bypasses that use Siri. So
yeah, a lot of them did.
yeah, right.
Well,
It was
a
like
lot of
trigger
first ones.
Siri and like ask her to make you toast, and then you'll have your have the password bypassed. So at any rate, yeah, patch your apples as soon as they come out, as soon as the fix comes out. So it's great that you joined us because the next two articles are right up your alley, Jason. One of them is about Nintendo ROMs.
Yes.
So I mean, so it's an article from Motherboard. A couple who ran ROM site to pay Nintendo $12 million. So there's always been this long-standing argument, right? Maybe not argument. I guess you call it argument. Where, why would anybody care about this 30-year-old game? I'm just going to rip it to a ROM and put it up on my ROM site, and people are going to download it, and people are going to have a lot of fun, right? And that seemed to stand for a long time. I mean, Nintendo ROMs showed up somewhere in the late 90s, as far as I know. And I have not ever heard of anybody being prosecuted over running a ROM site. I'm not saying it's legal. I'm not saying that you should go do this, but I'm saying that it really felt like console companies who created consoles for these older games just didn't care, right? Well, apparently they do.
Well, Nintendo has seen that the retro gaming market is firing up. You know, with their
Yes.
the Nintendo, whatever the hell they called it, and the Super Nintendo one coming out, and now Sony's coming out with one. So it's firing up. The problem, of course, is that Nintendo put out what, a dozen of their games?
Yeah.
And that's it. And these sites have literally hundreds of these games.
So that doesn't matter, right? It's still their intellectual property, right? So
well,
it is.
Did Nintendo own all the games?
I think they were all licensed through Nintendo, which means Nintendo
well, then
licensed them.
yes. So I forget which companies how they did the licensing, but yeah, if they're all licensed through Nintendo, then yeah, Nintendo has every right to do this.
I mean, I absolutely played Nintendo games back in the day that did not feel like they were sanctioned by Nintendo. The cartridge looked different, like they were funny colors, they were shaped weird.
Right.
You know, like whatever.
There are third-party cartridges, just like they did with Atari and every other console. There are third-party cartridges you can get that are not licensed.
So there are probably some that were not licensed through Nintendo, but as far as I understand, the Nintendo games you would just go to like Toys R Us and buy back in the day. They were all, licensed through Nintendo. But at any rate, I remember I was in college, I think, late 90s, when I saw my first Nintendo emulator. And I think that was around the time when they showed up.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's like, nobody cares about these things. Go ahead, download them. You're not going to get in any trouble. Now, deep down, I knew this was software piracy. Because, come on. You're downloading software you're not paying for that was once not free. But at any rate, apparently Nintendo does care. And you're right, it's probably because they're releasing the, NES Classic and SNES Classic, is that what they called them?
Yeah, that's what it is. NES Classic. Yep.
I mean,
and I want to say Sega did the same thing. There was a little Sega...
Went after people?
No, there was a little Sega box, box.
Yeah, they've come out now and again all over the place. So
yeah. Now, what I'm curious about is, do the folks who have written the emulators themselves have anything to worry about?
My theory is that they could get in trouble through the wonderful DMCA. Because technically it's reverse engineering.
Exactly. Did you say it's legal? Sorry, you cut out, Charles.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure reverse engineering is legal. What you do with it is the issue, but
it's my understanding is that it's still somewhat of a gray area. You can try to get around it by saying I totally reverse engineered this for educational purposes.
Well, I mean, I certainly wouldn't want to litigate it.
Right. Yeah, because then you'd have to be a lawyer.
Yeah,
who wants to be a lawyer?
But
nobody.
Realistically, the emulators are not the issue. So, I mean, the emulators it's a tricky legal gray area, but the ROMs are not.
Yeah,
Right.
right. Yeah, the ROMs are flat out copies of existing games. So yeah, I mean, what I was thinking was like RetroPie and whatnot that are these really great emulators. They package a bunch of emulators and they package Kodi, which has gotten a lot of bad press. So it's like I'm waiting for the day that
Cody's gotten bad press.
yeah, Kodi's gotten bad press because so many people synonymize.
How weird.
Is that a word? Synonymize Kodi with pirated movies. Because there's like plugins you can get for Kodi that will literally just go and troll torrent sites and get you copyrighted material just by simply browsing to it from your TV and playing it. And to people who don't understand what they're doing, they're just like, oh yeah, I got this Kodi thing running on my Amazon Fire Stick or my Raspberry Pi or something that somebody built me and I have no idea what I'm doing. They just think it's, free movies. I can watch free movies.
I mean, if you know what you're doing, then right, fine. You've made that choice and you've taken that risk.
Right, but there's people that don't. That's what I'm saying.
No, yeah,
Like I have a friend who has a Kodi box. He thinks it's the most awesome thing in the world, and I'm looking at it like, dude, be careful how you use that thing because you could easily get your internet service cut off because you're technically pirating movies. And he's like, nah, I bought this thing. It's just like this prepackaged thing. It's totally fine. I'm like, I don't know. So, as far as I know, he hasn't gotten in trouble. I'm not about to build a Kodi box and start pirating movies, though.
No.
I'm like gainfully employed now. I buy movies I want to watch. What do you think I am? Like 19? Broke?
College sure was awesome.
Yeah, right. So anyway, yeah, don't
That actually, so this whole thing makes me concerned about things like archive.org.
Oh, right. Absolutely. I don't know if they've looked into the copyright status of all the things they have up and running on their site. You're right.
They absolutely are aware of all of that. They've done the research. So
they're definitely like, at least in terms of user submitted content, like certain books, magazines, there are definitely things kicking around on archive.org that would not withstand a takedown order. But I don't know what level of vigilance there is with reviewing those.
Well, sure, but I mean, they have a live web emulator where you can play classic video games.
Oh,
right.
So,
and there are live ROMs from companies that don't know that they're there because they just put them up and said, let's see if anybody notices this. I mean, look, you know some of the people that work there.
Yep.
They just kind of throw it at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah,
which is fun. I mean, it is. I just, that sort of concerns me a little bit.
Yeah, I'd hate to see something like the Internet Archive get in some sort of trouble over that sort of thing.
Right.
Just because they do some really good work, preserving humanity and all.
They do spectacular work. So. Yep.
So, that's enough about pirated ROMs. Now we're going to talk about some guy accidentally routing Google through Russia and China.
This is technically an accident, but it's kind of hard to assume good faith.
I see you shaking your head, Jason. So, all right. So I'll give you folks a quick rundown, but Jason's the expert here on routing, so he can probably explain this a lot better than I can. That's why I'm very glad you joined in late. So this is from Reuters. Reuters. I don't know how to pronounce that. That thing with the REU that is hard to pronounce. A Nigerian firm takes blame for routing Google traffic through China. And what this comes down to is somebody made an oops with something called a BGP filter and somehow accidentally routed Google's network through China and Russia. So explain to us how this works again, Jason.
All right. So it's been a while since I've gotten my hands deep into this. And this is a problem that, dear God, people, this should not be happening anymore. This was a problem when I got into networking 20 years ago. And already by then it had been a problem where everybody was throwing their hands up and going, again, please learn and stop doing this. So basically, what you can do at the BGP level is you're not necessarily routing blocks of IPs by IP. You kind of route the AS numbers. So if Google has an AS number, which I could look up, but I'm too lazy to, you can actually tell it to route everything that comes from an AS number in a certain direction. And if you screw up the filters, typo something, or maliciously do it, as was done at DEF CON a number of years ago, you can route entire chunks of the internet to places that they're not supposed to be. When you do it to something like Google, you've effectively DOS attacked whatever you've routed it towards, because that is a ton of traffic.
Yeah, right.
And in this case, it sort of all hit China. Now, everybody likes to say, "Oh, it hit China Telecom and just sort of bounced off." Maybe China Telecom grabbed as much of that traffic as they could.
Yeah, right. At that point, they could.
That's hard to say. I mean, if it was done maliciously, chances are they probably had something. I'm not going to disparage China as a country, but if it was done by a nation state such as China and they pointed it at themselves, you know that they've got that traffic as much of it as they can, or the pieces that they're actually after.
Right.
But it is a lot of traffic, a massively large amount of traffic.
Yeah, if they were going to parse it, they would have to be ready to do so, in other words.
And on top of this, 74 minutes? Come on.
Yeah, I know.
Seriously?
That's quite... Yeah. So what I'm trying to wrap my head around is how a third party, completely unrelated to Google, could affect routing for Google's networks.
Keep in mind, it's not taking all of Google's traffic across the entire world and routing it.
Okay.
What it's doing is it's routing traffic that would pass through its network.
So it's like I've reconfigured
traffic.
I've reconfigured my edge router or my whatever core router incorrectly or correctly if I'm doing it nefariously, and all the traffic for Google that hits my router is now sent in the wrong direction.
Right. Typically, you're announcing the routes that you're responsible for, so you're sort of sucking the traffic in. In this case, I'd have to dig a little bit deeper, but some providers allow you to put certain labels. Not labels is the wrong word. I can't remember the correct word, but tags maybe. You can send certain tags out that route traffic in their network for you. The intention is to be able to do things like anti-DDoS and some special filtering to make sure that the wrong traffic isn't coming to you. But if you abuse it because filters are wrong or because they never set them up, you can cause all sorts of havoc to happen.
So that could be done intentionally, but wouldn't really benefit anybody unless they had a goal.
Right.
Like if the goal was to route that through a third party so that they could get their hands on the traffic. Now, keep in mind, this isn't like decrypted traffic or anything. It's just whatever traffic is floating around the internet anyway.
Right. So none of this would be decrypted. In the case of Google, I want to say 100% of Google is encrypted these days.
So it's essentially traffic that would have been sort of on the public internet anyway. It's just that now it went a place it shouldn't have. And so I don't know what that really gets you then. It sounds really nefarious, but it really sounds like it's just like an oops.
It could very well have been an oops. It just to me, it's one of those like, I can't believe that this is still a problem.
Yeah, right. It seems like there should be safeguards or something to prevent this. But again, if it's your own router,
right? There are in a lot of cases there's safeguards in place to prevent this sort of thing, but not everybody deploys them. The bigger players, Main One being one of them, should know better and should have put in place filters to prevent this.
Right. All right. So for 79 minutes, this guy routed Google traffic. Not for the world, just for, I guess, people that are affected by his system or their routing system. It was like a cable provider in Nigeria. Main One Cable.
Yes.
So I guess Nigerian traffic for Google or anything that goes through Nigeria to get to Google got routed through the wrong places. So not great, but it also doesn't sound like it's the end of the world. 79
as an
minutes, man.
As an aside, I do love the story that's right beneath this one.
The story that's right beneath this one?
Yeah, in my I don't know if it's the
In
same
the
for
notes?
everybody, but no, in
on the
Reuters.
website.
Yeah, because the next story is U.S. lawmaker says Facebook cannot be trusted to regulate itself.
Oh,
which I find to be humorous.
Yeah, no, here it's U.S. should create fund to counter China's Belt and Road push. Okay, I don't know what that means.
My ad blocker
Okay.
doesn't show anything.
My ad blocker says that it has blocked 2,000 things on this page alone. You block Origin.
funny.
It says over 2K.
Well, yeah, that's because you've had the page open for a while and there's something that keeps bouncing.
Yeah, something's reloading or whatever. Yeah, I know, but come on. The next article we have, or the next article that I have open, which is the thing I've linked in our chat section, has 5. Just for comparison, Google has none. The Google Doc I have open. So anyway, maybe that's because it's going through China. I don't know. All right, so that's about it for the news. That means I have a transition thing to play. I'm like forgetting how to podcast because it's been too long. All right, I don't know that we have any real announcements to go over today, do we? No? B-Sides is over. DerbyCon is over.
Hey, B-Sides coming up. It'll be sometime in November of 2019.
Yeah, may as well start now, right?
Yeah.
So B-Sides was fun, though.
B-Sides was awesome. Yeah.
That was a great time. B-Sides Delaware, for anybody who's just tuning in for this show and hasn't heard all of the other shows where we talked about B-Sides Delaware that was coming up and is now past.
Yes.
I presented there this year about my experience in starting this podcast and my YouTube channel, which is unrelated to this podcast. I don't know when the recordings are going to be published. Do you have any insight on that, Jason?
Not yet, no.
But I know that it was recorded because there was a mic there and a guy doing recordings. So as long as that went well, there should be a recording of my talk that I'll eventually be able to publish. But yeah, it was a fun time. The kids had fun taking stuff apart and playing Minecraft.
Yes, lots and lots of Minecraft.
Yeah.
Destruction Alley was a huge hit, like it is every year. They annihilated everything that was put in front of them. Legos, a lot of Legos.
There were Legos. My 4-year-old daughter has her first hard drive platter.
That took a long time.
I know, right? Well, I didn't have any hard drive she could take apart. I had to take it apart for her too. She was very like, "What are you doing? I don't understand." But she learned how to use a screwdriver.
Yeah.
And Eric, who you both know, I think anyway, told me to be careful now that she knows how to use a screwdriver.
Good luck.
Yeah. Yep. Good luck indeed.
Yeah. So the lot of stuff in the spawn camp area. Chess, Legos, Minecraft, Destruction Alley, snap circuits, all that good stuff. And then the structured area was pretty popular this year too. Python classes, Wireshark, Scratch, all sorts of stuff.
I learned some things about Wireshark from an 11-year-old, which was pretty darn cool. I'm not exactly a big Wireshark person, but you know, I'm at least like familiar with it, but I've never really used it extensively. I use it mainly to troubleshoot connections and whatnot, and for that you don't really need a deep understanding of it. It's more or less like, oh yeah, I see connections on the right ports and whatever. Well, she showed me a couple of things, like how to reassemble VoIP calls, which was like frightening.
You know, it's a fun trick to point Wireshark at your primary gateway.
Yeah, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, and then, leave your computer, go home for the day, and wonder why your computer crashed and took the network offline. Not saying this happened in a previous job, but...
Never.
No.
That doesn't sound like a thing at all.
Well, Wireshark should be passive, so you shouldn't have taken out the network. I can see your computer crashing, but you shouldn't have been able to destroy the network.
I forget
Yeah, right.
exactly what went wrong. And to be clear, I didn't do it.
Totally wasn't me. It was somebody else. So I realized
you can figure out system misconfigurations pretty quick with that. When you turn on Wireshark and suddenly you're getting, BGP packets, you scratch your head and go, I don't think I should be getting those.
Yeah, right. Oh, hey guys, we have some chat going on the YouTube channel. Sorry, we missed you.
YouTube.com/something.
Yeah, yep.
Oh wait, there's a link in the chat.
There's totally a link in the chat. You can just click on that thing and you can go to the... Yeah, there we go.
Then I can hear echoes. That'll be fun.
Yeah, don't play the video while we're streaming. That'll give you echoes. So I've decided we should start reviewing whether we have like reviews on this show, which we don't get frequently. So folks, please go give us some reviews. We're not begging for reviews, but we'd like feedback. We used to push this pretty hard, and now we don't anymore because, I don't know, maybe we don't care. Maybe because nobody sends us reviews. Come on, folks. We need to know what kind of a job we're doing. So I don't know when this was posted, but it's long enough ago that I didn't know it was here. We got a review on iTunes. Totally a 5-star review because we're supposed to celebrate that, right?
Yes.
From DataFX, who's a guy. He's in our Slack channel, and he pretty frequently visits our YouTube channel on Show Night. He just basically says, I'm not a sysadmin, but I really enjoy this podcast. If you're into technology and security, I highly recommend it. So I wanted to say thanks for the review. The only other review we covered like a year and a half ago, and that was from Dustin, who is now a co-host whenever he's free enough to be here.
see, if you review the podcast, you might become a co-host.
Right. If you review the podcast. Charles, have you ever reviewed the podcast?
I don't think so.
You're out. Get
Yeah,
out.
we can't be.
Well, no, I went from guest to host.
Yes,
Yeah,
you were.
yeah,
You were
sorry
a
about
guest. My phone is ringing. You can listen to my awesome ringtone.
Well, answer the phone so that we can all say hi.
Totally not going to answer the phone. So, yeah, reviews. I don't know where else people might be sending us reviews that I'm not looking at, but I'm going to try to do a better job of looking at them and telling you folks when we get reviews.
Yes. If you leave us reviews wait, how does this go on every podcast I listen to? Leave us 5-star reviews because it's how people find the podcast.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, I'm not going to push it like that.
But how will we ever become podcast billionaires?
With a lot more work than we put into this show.
Do you know how long it took me to make this drink today? At least 30 seconds.
What are you drinking?
Old fashioned.
Oh yeah? I haven't had an old fashioned since DerbyCon.
Oh,
Which is
come over, I'll make you one.
Admittedly only a month and a half ago, but still. I have left-hand milk stout, which is pretty cool.
In your left hand. Very good.
In my left hand. You can only drink left-hand stouts in your left hand.
Correct.
Isn't that how that works?
Yes. Because if you put it in your right hand, then it's a right hand. No.
No, see, it doesn't fit. It doesn't actually I'm gonna drop this thing all over my keyboard.
Oh, it's like a magnet. It repels it.
Yeah, it repels it. You have to hold it in your left hand. Yeah, so I found this interesting post on Reddit of all places, and I don't remember if I was just bored and browsing through Reddit or if this came up as some sort of suggested thing. This guy, you're familiar with the concept of Googling yourself just to see what's out there. This guy did that, and he found that some site called My Life, was it, I think, had reviewed him. As though he were some sort of a product. They reviewed him, and it was surprisingly accurate about his life. And the thing that was really, really weird about it is that in order for him to see the whole review, he had to pay money. I don't know that he did or not. I didn't read the end of the article. But there's a link in the show notes, and I found it to be a very interesting concept that anybody would take time to review somebody else's life and how details about your life that have been published on the internet are sometimes difficult to get removed, right? So this is obviously a site that's up here to try to make money. I'm pretty sure they're not going to take this information down without like a court order. So yeah, it's kind of creepy, kind of weird. You guys are busy chatting, I can see.
But you told us there's a chat, and we're supposed to chat, and now you're talking, and it's
you're
falling apart.
You're supposed to do both.
Oh, okay.
That's the point of the podcast.
Yeah. So these wonderful sites that have your name in them are all over the damn place, and I hate them.
Yeah.
The problem is, they're sort of getting. It's hard to say where they're getting the information from. Some of it they're pulling from public record. Some of them they're pulling from. I think they're pulling from agreements they have for marketing and other stuff. But there is good news. GDPR is going to fix all of this. It's a magic bullet. It's just GDPR and it's fixed.
If we move to the EU.
Funny thing about that.
Yeah? Like
most,
funny haha?
Most US companies, whether they realize it or not, especially companies that have websites and do things on the web, are considered global companies because of that and are supposed to be following GDPR. In addition, I believe California has already passed their GDPR-like bill, and there's 28, I think it's 28 other states that are somewhere in the process of passing bills that are similar to the GDPR, and in some cases more aggressive.
So, I mean, first of all, I'm sort of curious how European law could actually have any standing against someone in the U.S.
Well, that's the thing. If you're an EU citizen who is doing business with a U.S. company, there might be a tribal issue. But if you're a U.S. citizen doing business with a U.S. company, GDPR will not reach that transaction.
Well, so what I'm getting at is how does GDPR have any teeth in the U.S. if it's a European law?
Because there's agreements between Europe and the U.S. The EU and the U.S. have agreements in place that say if a European or an EU customer were to do something and somebody didn't follow GDPR, they could sue. Don't worry, it's a rather small fine. I believe it's something along the lines of 4% of your global revenue.
Yeah, we had a discussion about this.
$20 million. Yeah.
Because I used the example of the web hosting company I was running. If someone tried to sue us for that, 4%, or what was it, like 4% or like $75K or something, or
20 million.
What?
Yeah, 20 million is the number that I heard. They heard most recently.
Yeah. So the argument I was making is that if you're a small enough company and can't afford compliance officers, right? It's basically prohibitive for small companies to do business.
Right.
Because you can't afford a compliance officer, so you're just basically depending on your own grit to try to get this stuff into compliance. Yes. And if you're not a pro, you're just like, I don't know, making baskets or something, and you're running a website to do it. You're not GDPR compliant. All of a sudden, someone comes along and says, "We want $20 million because you screwed up." Like, that's impossible, flat out impossible for most small businesses to pay.
Yeah.
So
so it's sort of being decried as a bill that a lot of people can't follow.
Yeah.
So Charles, while you're right that a U.S. customer cannot go and push a GDPR violation against a U.S. business, my understanding is they can't. You still benefit from it because they should have the GDPR controls in place already. And anything that they can do for an EU customer, they'll be able to do for a US customer. So, for instance, if you look at Google and being able to, quote, forget the whole right to be forgotten thing, you can do that as a US customer. And hey, when I installed WordPress, apparently there's GDPR stuff in it now,
There is.
Yeah, there is.
which is the funniest thing in the world.
WordPress
But,
is distributed internationally. Now, whether you
so
do
that's
anything
the
with
thing.
Yep.
Yeah, 'cause
So at
Also-
any rate,
Also tripped over an article about the GDPR stuff that's in WordPress that says, it's now made it super insecure, but there was apparently all sorts of security problems with it, which is funny.
I sat through an interesting talk at DerbyCon. I think we talked about this on the last show from the WordPress security team. What I was hoping for was a talk more about WordPress security, but it was more about running a security team, which happened to be WordPress's security team. They said some interesting stuff about how they were trying to get basically the world of WordPress up to more recent versions by trying to not necessarily force, but strongly encourage automatic upgrades and updates across the WordPress environment. That was kind of interesting. So in WordPress news,
World of WordPress. I don't think
well,
I played that game.
considering WordPress runs like a ridiculously large percentage, considerably anyway, of the internet, you could call it that, right? If WordPress improves security, the general internet hygiene goes up.
True.
At any rate, I think we've talked about GDPR and WordPress enough. Should we move on to a main topic, guys? Or do we have anything else we want to chat about and just, BS and beat horses?
I don't know. Is the horse sufficiently beaten?
Well, I mean, it's kind of in a pulp on the floor. It's really messy.
Right, but there's still like visible pieces left. We can continue hammering on it.
No, I think we should probably move on.
Okay.
So tonight's main topic is kind of freeform. I find myself in a lot of situations in the past couple months where I'm really having to question a lot of assumptions that I've made in life from a technology perspective. Things like, I've used Android for the past 10 years. Why am I using Android for the past 10 years? Why do I continue to buy Android? Well, because I assume that because I've owned Android for 10 years, I'm going to keep buying Android devices. And as we mentioned earlier, I just bought an iPhone, and that's because I really sat down and thought about why the heck am I running Android still? So, for example, it used to be because I liked the flexibility of an Android device. I liked the cheaper price of an Android device, and I liked the ability to basically jailbreak and modify my Android devices. I've moved past all those things, and Android devices aren't all that cheap anymore. Right? So the last Pixel that I bought, which I have in my pocket that I just played my ringtone from, is a $650 phone. That's on par with Apple's devices. Apple's are still a little more expensive, but there was a point where iPhones were $500-$600 phones. Now, flagship Android devices are just as expensive. So the price point, argument doesn't get there anymore. I don't jailbreak my phones anymore because I realized that that's just not a very smart thing to do for a device you're going to depend on every day. And it could be a security problem. And honestly, the modifiability of the Android operating system isn't what it used to be. And I've encountered so many weird little bugs and glitches in Android in the past, 6 months or so, that I'm just like really frustrated with the platform. So why do I keep running Android? Well, I'm going to stop. I'm going to start using iPhone. See if I like it any better or worse. I'm really hoping I didn't just spend $400 on a phone I'm going to hate. But anyway, that's kind of the point. I thought we would just discuss a little bit about how to keep your mind open and keep yourself sort of open to change when it comes down the pike. We've been having a lot of discussions lately on a work front about why do we host things the way we do? Why do we run data centers the way we do? Does it still make sense? Should we be looking at cloud? Should we be looking at software as a service? Like that sort of thing. So it's really got my mind working in a different way. So I thought we would just sort of discuss it for a little while, see if anybody benefits from, us talking about breaking the norms and trying to get into other things. So, I mean, a perfect example here, Jason, you just switched to WordPress. Was there like some profound reason behind that? I know you've been a staunch opponent of WordPress for a very long time. So what's the story there?
Well, so there was a lot of bright light and there's some sort of like weird noise like trumpets or something, and the clouds parted, and some dude in a white dress came down and said WordPress, and I figured it was the thing I had to follow.
Oh, so you had like an epiphany.
Yeah. Oh, that's what it is. Yeah. My blog has been running very, very slow for a while. And I think it's a combination of things. So the software that I was running, while I love it, is very, very slow to be updated. There's a lot of cruft in there that needs to be fixed. And I thought perhaps a nice fresh start would be the way to go. So I sort of started casting around. WordPress has made strides in recent years, security-wise, and I've got these people that are on this podcast that I'm on every once in a while that keep telling me about WordPress and how great it is. So I figured I'd take a look at it again. And to be honest, one of the biggest things was I write blog posts offline. I don't like having to be tied to a web interface to do things.
Mm-hmm.
And this persists across, way beyond blogs. I can't stand YouTube for the pure fact that I can't watch it offline without going through extensive steps to rip the video and convert it and all this other crap. So
it's a good thing Iron Sysadmin doesn't depend on YouTube. Oh, wait.
Well, it doesn't though. So I mean, it does for the video.
No,
but
you're right. Yeah.
So things like I used to watch
facet of Iron Sysadmin.
Right. So I used to watch Hack 5. You're familiar with Hack 5?
Yes.
I don't watch Hack 5 anymore because you can't get Hack 5 anywhere except YouTube. There is no podcast feed for it anymore. And I miss it, but I don't have the time. Like, trying to watch it in my browser is sort of a pain in the ass because it's over there, and if I maximize it, well, now the browser's maximized, which means the rest of the browser tabs are acting differently. Like it's a pain in the ass. And it's sort of that same thing. Like there's certain things that I do like doing offline. Being able to write a blog post offline, stop whenever I need, and sort of move on wherever is nice. And I can use tools that aren't just whatever the blog software is. So I use Mars Edit on my desktop. I have a different piece of software that I use on like my iPad, and they didn't integrate very well with the blogging software that I had. It was always a hack.
Yeah.
So
and let me guess, WordPress just works.
WordPress just works across everything because everybody builds WordPress support.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the fight that I had with Android in the early days. Everybody, I mean, you can remember this because you were working with me at the time, and you probably heard me ranting about it frequently. How everything was made to work for iPhone, for iOS, right. And like Android was always always an afterthought. That's changed, but I can definitely understand where you're coming from, being sort of the little guy, right?
Right. I mean, that's you've got Android and iPhone, like those are the two big massive platforms. So not to have something that's not interoperating between both of them is a pain.
Oh yeah.
When we're talking about blogging software, I've lost track of the number of different blogging platforms that I've seen. So it's almost impossible to have a piece of software that works across all of them.
Yeah.
So what a lot of them do is they build APIs into their platforms that match WordPress or Meta Weblog or any of the other guys and use those. But something is always off. Something doesn't work quite right. And it's a pain. So I figured I'd give WordPress a try. I'm trying to keep the number of plugins down. So I'm playing with some different stuff. I've got, I don't know, 2, 4, 6, 8. I've got 10 plugins, which I think is probably 5 more than I actually want. But I think they're, one of them is the plugin for the new editor, which is actually pretty slick. I was actually
I haven't
impressed.
tried that yet.
It is pretty slick.
But that's the new editor, so that's not going to be a plugin. That'll be in core soon, so that'll go away.
Yeah,
one of them is two-factor authentication.
I haven't done that yet. I should.
So I tried a couple of them. I tried what appeared to, well, first of all, WordPress's plugin setup kind of sucks, because trying to figure out which one is the best is the filters just aren't there to be able to find things that are highly rated. It seems like whenever you search for something, it gives you whatever was most recently updated.
Well, I mean, that's valid too.
Maybe, but that's all it does. So I ended up installing some orange software thing about two-factor, which the first version of it apparently talks to their servers and tells them everything you're doing. So I got rid of that pretty quick.
That's bad.
And then the offline version, the offline version worked for admin and only admin. You couldn't put two-factor on anything but the admin user. I was like, well, this is stupid. so I found another one.
Yeah, it depends on your use case, I suppose.
Yeah, so I found another one that allows me to put two-factor on everything. So, and then I put WordFence in, and if I pay for WordFence, I can get two-factor through that. So I'm contemplating. Say again?
They've got a strong rep.
Yeah, that's why I installed it. So I've got one or two. So it runs in Docker, and I'm having an issue with it not being able to contact itself, which could be either the max execution time, or memory, but I don't think it's memory. But it could be max execution time. Originally, I think the problem was that the Docker host name was the name of the blog, was the domain of the blog, and the ports that it needs weren't open. So I think that's where that issue was. So I've got to play a little bit more and see to get that completely working. But it's doing its thing.
Yeah, it was kind of an adventure to get WordPress running, even just a simple WordPress in Docker when I set it up, just to get uploads working and get them in a way that they're persistent and permissioned properly and secured in the way that I wanted.
Yeah, everything appears to be working. I've got, I think, 2 volumes and 2 files that I put in as volumes.
Yeah,
and everything else just works. And it seems to be working okay right now. Getting it migrated was an adventure. That was
really mine. Oh, getting it migrated from your old platform to the new. Yeah.
So the plugin I found for it only worked with WordPress 2.9.
Right. So I don't want to cut you off. I know Charles has a hard stop. Did you want to get something in before you had to go? He has to stop at 8:30. I know you've been sort of opening up horizons related to work. So I'm just curious, if you have anything to chip in.
I would just say more generally. For me, what can be the challenge is recognizing when it's time to make a change. Like this is the inflection point. I should be reassessing what I'm doing. Like we have I know a guy, this guy who is constantly innovating in his life. Like he's always trying new things and, moving in different directions. And I'm not that guy. I like stability.
Yep. I know the feeling.
But, what can be tricky about that is, it's very easy to get stuck in your routine and just keep doing the same thing, in personal life and work. But, sometimes it does make sense to assess why am I still doing this thing this way? Does this still make sense? Maybe it does still make sense. Sometimes you wake up one morning and you're like, maybe we should move all our stuff to the cloud.
Why do I sleep on the right side of the bed?
Why do I sleep on the right side of the bed? Why do I go to the same coffee shop every morning? Why am I walking this way to work? There's a book I've been meaning to read about complacency by I think Tyler Cohen, where he's claiming that Americans are becoming more complacent and risk averse in their daily lives. Now, I'm not sure if that's true or not, but it sounds interesting, and I heard about it on a podcast. But but it's
if you heard about it on a podcast, it's got to be true.
Yeah, but not this podcast.
Oh, okay. Well, now you heard about it on this podcast. If you listen after I finished editing,
but so it's so like every once in a while, it's like kind of stick your head up, be like, does this all still make sense? Because maybe it does still all make sense. I mean, some things you just keep doing the way you're doing because that is actually the best way, or the transition costs are too high, or it's just not the right time to make a change.
Yeah. So personally, in the sysadmin role, right? Everything is so stability focused that it's really easy to fall into this is working, let's not change it rut. I mean, it's I make small adjustments here and there to make things a little better. Like I mean, at work, you and I, we've gone through a lot of very small adjustments to how we do web hosting, right? First it was, well, we got to get from RHEL 5 to 6. Okay, now we're on RHEL 6. Let's get Puppet worked in there so it works better. Let's get provisioning a little better so that we can, repeat our builds. Okay, now let's try to get to RHEL 7 and highly available web servers, and let's get shared storage. And these are all like very incremental changes, right? It wasn't just like, okay, nuke it, start again. That just doesn't happen. It's always very incremental changes, at least for me. And it's really easy to get into that. Just, this is the way we do it, and it works, and there's no reason to change that because it's working. But sometimes you really have to shake things up and really figure out, could you be doing things differently, and would it be better if you did?
So, here's an interesting example. This comes from work. So where we work, the web development team, for basically historical reasons, owns the management of the MySQL infrastructure.
Yep.
Galera cluster, some traditional replica databases, we own it, which means we manage the infrastructure, we provision it, we do the care and feeding of it, future concepts with it. It's all ours.
Yeah.
And, we drafted a whole document. This has been true for a long time, but we took a step back and actually described this service, described all the dependencies, defined from an enterprise standpoint where we thought it was going, and then took a step back and said, why are we doing this? Why is it us? Would we hire to replace this capability if one of us left? And it always made sense that we were doing it, but now that we take a step back, we're not sure it makes sense anymore.
Yeah. Why is the web team managing the MariaDB infrastructure
and maybe
the MongoDB infrastructure? Because it supports your applications for one, but you're not DBAs. You've sort of become de facto DBAs because you had to.
Yeah,
but
I don't think we're bad at it, but at the same time, it's work that we're doing. So one way to kind of poke at the envelope is we're doing a trial right now with Amazon RDS. We're just playing with it, getting a sense of its capabilities, because if we could offload the databases to some managed solution, then that's time we get back, and that from an organizational standpoint kind of clarifies things. Or maybe we just keep doing what we're doing. But this was one of those moments where it made sense, especially because we're getting close to wanting to renew that infrastructure one way or the other.
Right. And it certainly would be nice to just say okay, I clicked a few buttons in the AWS console, and now I have a database, instead of, I manage, we manage 12 individual RHEL servers to get you your dev stage and prod database infrastructure, right?
It's more like 18.
Oh, right, because you have some that aren't the clusters, right? Yeah, I was talking mainly about the 3-node Galera clusters.
Yeah, 6, so a total of 6 per environment. And they work fine. But,
right. But again, I mean, that's it's burden on me to keep the platform running for you, to keep the updates available for you, to keep them up to date, period, right? Organizing all that and, arranging maintenance windows and updates and whatnot, where you could just say, AWS, just give me a database.
And
I don't care what you do behind it, as long as it always works. Just deal with it. Like, that's your problem. I'll pay you to deal with that problem.
And it's also a capital. Well, capital is kind of the wrong word, but there's a project every couple of years to, for upgrades to actually move to a new major release, and all the, that's, you don't think of it in those terms, but you should. You like that's migrating all those databases. That takes time.
Yeah, right. Now, I mean,
and that's time when we're not doing other stuff that is, more central to what we're theoretically doing as web developers.
Right. So, I mean, to play sort of devil's advocate, like personally, I love building clusters. I love designing highly available things and reliable services. And like the virtualization cluster that we run, that all of your stuff depends on at work. I just like, that's the sort of work I love doing. But I'm also only one guy. I mean, yeah, there's two of us. I'm not trying to I'm not trying to say it's all me. I'm just saying, for the sake of discussion, there's one, maybe two people that are managing this complex system. And how valuable is it for those people to be doing that versus doing other things, right? Maybe there could be awesome other things that we could be doing, or building the next awesome thing. Or maybe the next awesome thing is based on AWS, and that's where we should be focusing our time. There's just all these what ifs. If I wasn't busy managing a cluster and this physical infrastructure, what could I be doing? And that's the sort of questions that people really need to think of when they're starting to think about, why are they doing things the way they've been doing them for so long? Maybe the way you're doing them is fine. Maybe it's great. And maybe it is the right way. So don't think that because it's the way you're doing it, you should change it. But it's not a terrible thing to reevaluate every so often. Maybe you'll look at RDS, you'll be like, yeah, that was cool. I could spin up a database in seconds, but there's this other thing that I really don't like about it, and I'd really much rather just keep running my clusters.
And that might be the answer.
Right.
Another quick example is Flickr's changing its terms of service. Free accounts won't be unlimited anymore. So I either have to go pro or take my stuff somewhere else. And it's an inflection point, but one I don't have time for, right? So
yeah,
hunted. I'm like, okay, they're doing a deal. I'll go pro for 1 year, and that buys me a year to
reevaluate.
Figure out a different option.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are great options, but I'm also pretty sure I do not have time in the month of December and month of January to figure out what those options are.
Right. Well, I used to be a big Evernote user, and when they switched their pricing model, I had to switch. I loved Evernote, but I didn't feel like it was a service that was worth paying for. And when they switched their pricing model such that in order to just continue doing the things that I was already doing, it was all of a sudden going to be for pay. Same deal. I had to switch. I had to change. I still have a handful of like legacy things hanging out in Evernote that I didn't move over. It's very similar to your Flickr story. Flickr is image hosting, right?
Yeah, they're image hosting.
Yeah.
No, they've been bought yet again as Yahoo collapses, and
right.
So the free tier is getting cut back, and I only use it as a publishing repository, but I have all my stuff stored locally. But I like what they do. I like the fact that I can indicate licenses on the things I publish. I like the mapping based on geodata and the EXIF. I like the taxonomy, but I could easily just shove all my images onto an S3 bucket, but
right.
like to have that metadata structure, but I don't have time to either find another host or, more realistically, probably just roll my own something. But then, is that the best use of my time? Do I really want to be building a gallery software?
Yeah, you probably have the capability, probably more capable than I would be of writing your own. But
Look, I have a time wasting hobby already, and it's building a model railroad.
right, it's not time wasting.
It certainly takes it up. But
Maybe maybe we'll revisit our a long time ago. Jason and I did an episode on basically having an outlet outside of your IT career to unwind with. Maybe we'll revisit that, and you can talk about your model trains. But yeah, for years I ran. You're probably familiar with the old PHP gallery app.
Oh yeah,
I ran that for years for all of my personal photos, and eventually I just dumped it all into Google Photos because I just didn't want to deal with the updates. I didn't want to deal with managing the software anymore, because while it wasn't a terrible burden or anything, it was just, I had enough things to deal with, and I didn't want to have to deal with that too. You're looking at the opposite direction. You're talking about, like, I've got a hosted service and now I'm going to write my own, maybe. Like, to me, that's the wrong move. But, obviously, maybe you think
that's why I paid for Pro for a year.
Right.
I paid, and I'm going to come back to this in the summer.
Right, but so maybe your frustration with all of the available platforms turns into you write the next awesome gallery app. You never know.
I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen.
I'm just saying, like, to someone who is an actual software developer or can be a web developer that has that skill, that could be one more offering in the hopper for someone who's looking for, I just need an app I can download to manage my my photos with, right? So maybe you're right, but I'm just saying, to folks who are considering that sort of a move, maybe they could be.
I'm curious to see how it shakes out, like how big this change is going to be. I think it's going to send a lot of people elsewhere, but it's not clear to me yet where that elsewhere is going to be.
Are they charging enough that it's not worth the features that you like?
I think it works out to about $50 a year. There's a discount at the moment.
Yeah.
And for unlimited storage and metadata, I mean, like, I think for what they give you, it's not unreasonable. It's a question of what is it you actually want.
Right.
Like, I like this because, I mean, I don't store images on Instagram or Facebook, and I don't trust Google to not kill any particular platform.
Yeah.
So I just like having a publishing repository that I control, and Flickr does a good job. Storage for the 13 gigs of photos I have is a lot less than that, but I haven't reckoned for transfer costs.
Yeah, personally, I pay about that much to Google for storage, for photos and Drive and things like that. It's like $2 a month. And I mean, I think it's worth it. And I don't even use it for the features you're talking about. I just want a place to dump all my pictures so that they're not, like, on a hard drive in my house and that crashes someday and I lose all my pictures,
That's the thing. I've got them separately backed up on so I have them stored on my NAS, and then they're also being backed up into Glacier.
Yeah, sounds like you have the my hard drive crashed scenario solved.
I don't know. The cost of Glacier restores me I'm not actually testing my backups.
Yeah, right. I know a guy who actually destroyed his NAS by accidentally dropping it off a desk.
Ooh.
It was like, like on the edge of his desk, and like the cat knocked it over or something. I mean, imagine the cat knocking over a NAS, right? Yeah, it crashed all the drives and actually somehow destroyed the backplane on the thing. The whole thing was unusable. When disaster strikes. So anyway, looks like we're getting close to your hard cutoff line.
Yeah, we're getting there.
So, Jason, did you have any more to share, or You've been silent over there, looking at other things.
No, to share. So if you have so your hobby, building your model railroad, one of the things that I was trying to do at B-Sides this year is sort of entertain people to talk about things that are not security as well. So, if you want to write it up and present it next year, feel free.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting as a time waster, and it's also introducing me to topics that I don't know a lot about. I mean, just because it's something where I'm actually using my hands constructively, which is not something I'm normally doing. But I'm also trying to wire it so that two people could be running, even though it's a small layout. I'm going to try to wire it so that two people can both be running trains simultaneously. So I think that could be a fun activity. Someone can come over and you can be running trains cooperatively, but it means I have to do something called block wiring, where I'm isolating different electrical blocks and having to wire in a certain way so that, all that crap works. So that's, I'm actually, I don't know very much about electricity. So it's interesting.
Well, luckily DC
Okay,
circuits
so-
aren't that complicated.
Well, they aren't.
Right. And what I'm hearing is that you could possibly give the talk next year, or you might die of electrical shock in between now and then.
Why not both?
Oh, okay. That works.
You could give the
Dante?
talk from beyond the grave.
The biggest issue is that B-Sides Delaware tends to conflict with the Allentown Model Train Show, which is where I was this weekend, and I'm not missing that. So yeah, the Allentown Train Show will be about a year from now at the Agriplex, and it's a lot of fun. Bring your kids.
And you're basically partaking in the hobby that created the modern word hacker anyway. So
Yes, you are.
So
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so next year, if B-Sides Delaware is on the same weekend it was this year, I may be in Florida. So I may miss both opportunities to either go to B-Sides Delaware or the Model Train Expo.
I hate you both. We don't have dates yet, and we're still working on that. So
yeah, right. I mean, it all depends. But yeah, we have a possible trip to Disney at the end of next year, November next year, and all I know is it's November. I don't know the dates yet. So
is that
I'll be a much
fabled vacations?
Yes, I'll be a much poorer person come November next year, from what I hear.
Vacation is when you exchange money for sanity.
Yeah,
Why?
that sounds like a
boring.
pretty good description.
That was boring.
Describe money for exchange money for sanity.
I need to refill my sanity points.
All right, so unless either of you have any more talking points, I think we could probably call it a night. What do you think?
Not 10 o'clock yet. I don't understand.
It's not 10 o'clock yet. Well, I need some time to edit the show.
Suppose if you have to.
Say yes. Say yep. Okay. We don't want Nate to be up till 2 in the morning.
And get this thing in the can before 9:45.
That'll be new. It'll be a record.
Man, when we used to record the show later, I used to be up till literally 1 in the morning until this thing was published and online. That's the whole reason we record earlier now.
No, we gotta get up early so we can see the 1 inch of snow that closes the entire valley.
Oh my gosh.
Weaklings.
Last I heard is it's not supposed to start till tomorrow afternoon now.
Oh.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see.
Is that wrong?
1 inch of snow will close the Lehigh Valley tomorrow.
We had we were supposed to have a thing at my daughter's school Friday, right? I was gonna take a half day of work. I was gonna go see they're doing a square dance. I don't know why they've chosen to do a square dance, but they do a square dance every year. So I'm like, all right, cool. We're gonna go see my 8-year-old do a square dance, and I hear from my wife today they've already canceled it because tomorrow, which is Thursday, there might be snow.
They've already canceled it?
They canceled it. Well, they didn't cancel. They rescheduled it sometime in December, which will mean it'll be even harder. No, it's actually the week I'm in friggin' Vegas, so I'm going to miss the damn thing. So, yeah. Thank you, school district, for overreacting to the threat of snow. Like, we don't get any snow in Pennsylvania ever. We can't possibly operate with snow.
I don't even know how to. I'm not even sure. Like, God, is it even scheduled to snow on Friday?
No, it's supposed to snow Thursday. I'm like, what is
understand.
going on here? It's like we live in Texas or something. I've heard that in Texas, if it snows like more than a quarter inch, the whole state shuts down.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So anyway, we're now no longer talking about anything technology or podcast related. We're just complaining about our local school district. So I think we're going to call it a night. Thank you both Charles and Jason for joining us tonight. You have any final words before we close? I'll take that as a no. All right, folks. So you can find me on Twitter at Gangriff. You can find the podcast on Twitter at Iron Sysadmin. Also, YouTube. We still aren't special enough to have our own custom URL on YouTube, but just search for Iron Sysadmin. I guarantee we're the only ones. Jason, you want to let the folks know where they can find you if they want to complain?
Yeah, I'm at Xenophage. There's an X in there somewhere. And I'm trying to resurrect my blog, no promises, but blog.godshell.com.
Nice. And Charles?
You find me at Mackensen, MACKENSEN. I primarily talk about football, trains, and occasionally web development topics.
And things you overheard in the office.
That Tuesday 3 p.m. meeting is the gift that keeps on giving.
All right, folks. Thanks for listening, and we will catch you maybe not in 2 weeks, but sometime in December. So, thanks.
Not all.
Hi, everybody.
All right, and to anybody who's still watching us on YouTube after that nice little rabbit trail we went down, thanks for watching. Thanks for the interaction in the chat. And we will see you again, I don't know, whenever the heck we record again. Probably the second week in December. Unless we somehow manage to make something work the week after Thanksgiving, which seems unlikely. So, yeah. Night, everybody.